And I love how it says that now. Welcome to our Thursday book launch. And my name is Malika Albrecht. I am the founding editor of a publication called Redheaded Stepchild. Some of y'all have been published in it. And we will be open for submissions in August, just as a heads up. And we only take poems that have been rejected elsewhere. I do like rejects.
Hold on a second, Patty.
It's a little
I'll put you in Patty. 'Cause I'm on the line here.
I'm going to mute. Hang on just one moment. There we go. Sorry. Now we're muted. I'm going to turn it over to Martin Willitts Jr. Right promptly, but I did want to say a few things. We've already celebrated with Martin before, and now we have two books tonight. A prolific and fabulous poet, but we were talking earlier about some of the jobs he's had, and I have to tell you, I'm completely enthralled with the concept of blacksmithing. I think that's a fabulous side job, and I think we're going to hear some poems about that, Martin. Yes.
I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
About blacksmithing, we can hear some.
I'm
yes.
going to have to find it. I wasn't planning that.
Well, maybe during open mic, we'll give you a chance to look that up, because I just think that's fabulous. It's a wonderful thing to be able to chat with people ahead of time. Thank you all so much for being here. And I am going to turn it over and spotlight Martin. Martin, thank you once again for celebrating your books with us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for everybody attending. This is harvest time. I was talking about before a lot of people came in. It's a time period when I was growing up. Every summer I would go to visit my grandparents' farm in Lancaster County, which is Amish and Mennonite territory. This book was published by Deerbrook Editions. I'll probably have to mention it a couple times. I do want to point out the cover, because in each square, those are paper cutouts. I do that as an art form. And these particular cutouts are the hex signs that you will see on barns in Lancaster County. I actually painted hex signs on barns in Lancaster County. So I know they have symbolism, and in the book I explain what this particular symbol means. Now the editor decided to put it in the format of a quilt. I actually made quilts, which is kind of unusual since quilting bees are usually female. I actually did that. I also used to work with a hand loom. So I know some really strange old habits. So I wanted to mention that before I started reading. But every spring, when kids would have Easter time off from school, I would leave from Syracuse, New York, and go down to Lancaster and spend a week working on the farm, doing the hand plowing. And I do mean plowing by hand. And I would also plant the seeds that were on the field. And I started very early with tossing seeds right behind my grandfather, but eventually I worked my way up to where I was actually pushing and pulling a hand plow. Spring at the farm. Under the new white apple flowers, resting under a hot goldenrod sun, far from the fox-filled hills, taking it all in, hoping it would never end. These days of lovely sunrises, playing forever under turning of aging stars, beyond the roan horse stable, tossing reins of loose straw, careless and easy, and the faraway hills calling me to join them. No matter how fast I run, I can never catch them. The sky filling lungs with colors from blue bonnets. The days were pitched for. The grinding mill moved, once stilled water, but never moved ducks. I ran my heedless ways, goldenrod clinging to my lungs. I mentioned before that it was a working farm. We grew Food, we had a roadside stand. We would sell it there. There was a community grocery store, for lack of a better word. We would sell produce there. But Amish and Mennonite trade a lot. And we had cows that were milkers, and we had cows that were butchered. We had working horses that would work on the farm, but we didn't have a lot of them. We had all kinds of animals, pigs, sheep, you name it. This one's talking about milking. I actually would milk by hand into a wooden or metal bucket. Milking. Guernsey cows lugged their milk-heavy bodies on the same worn-down trail, blazed by generations of their ancestors, knowing not one care in the world in the safety of fenced-off pastures, moving at the pace of small, slow rain, drizzling in fits and stops. Nothing disturbs them after chewing the grass, drinking from the shallow pond, swaying tails at the biting black flies. I've been milking, hands yanking pure milk into metal pails, measuring the offerings, listening to sloshing against emptiness, milk filling to the brim, the different tones, pitches, and completeness of it all. I will have to decide which one is not producing. One will have to go. It is the rule of survival, cash, and cost of feed. None are a pet. None are named. Otherwise, it would be hard to part with them. It is unfortunate I have to make this decision. Their bodies in half-light in morning are as milk heavy as a decision. Generations wearing down a path of ancestors, slow down during rain. They are undisturbed, as shallow as chewed grass, still being milked. The next poem, I might be changing my mind here. I was thinking I had a different poem across the page, but I'm going to go with this one. This was a story told to me. My neighbor tells about hard decisions. Mornings here are never dull. I found a man so lost and covered with snow, and his horse had fallen in that chest-high snow and could not move. The horse was begging to die with its eye. They had to try to beat the storm, but sunlight had glanced off snow and it was blinding. I could shoot the horse or the man. These choices are quiet, a person, and we can forget how storms can sneak up and take us with a snap of a finger. It is the storms inside us that are dangerous. Where we stand in life, hardness judges us, and one choice freezes the heart, shattering like icicles, while the other tells us who we are. And I mentioned blacksmithing earlier. I found the blacksmith poem. And I have terms in here that a blacksmith would use that are not common to the ordinary language. So the big word I have in here is draw down. And somebody, they were mentioning about knives early. It's when you sharpen everything to a point, and you have to keep hammering and heating, and the metal changes color, and that's what draw down means. So I mentioned that. I felt I should explain that word, blacksmithing. I worked the bellows, pumping breath into fire, to forge objects out of metal, bending with a hammer the glowing red into horseshoes, wrought iron fences, weather-vane roosters that spun with the wind. I did this as a teen, arms all muscle and memory, vibrating with iron clang, spark fly, draw down to a sharp tip. I once made a length of chains, eaten a lot. Black scaled onyx remains struck off, clean, undetectable. What in this life could be so perfect? Certainly not love. I sneered after seeing the couple next door divorce until I learned love is not hammered, it's forged. Now I have to explain about the black onyx. It's almost impossible to do what I was doing with chains without having some trace of black from the fire. I did it in such a way there was absolutely no trace of fire. Now, I want to end with this poem. I mentioned hand plowing. It's called The Way It Was and Still Is. Plowing the land when it was still dark, light just whispering from far away, the ground reluctantly parting like two old lovers, sleepers throwing hopes into the cautious wind, not expecting a reply. I'm grunting against the hand plow, the hard ground still partially frozen from late frost, not minding at all, knowing this is how the world works. Fingers grip on to what is real, let go what is not, and at 10, I know the difference. There's no beating the system, it's rigged. Survival depends on getting ahead of the hardness. The way the wet back bends, plowing the old way, you need to start when it is dark. There just isn't enough time or money or pity anymore. Never was, never will be in this harsh light, arriving like a foreclosure note. That is Harvest Time by Deerbrook Editions. I'm going to switch over to the other book. This came out about a couple weeks after the other book. And it's called Meditations on Thomas Cole's Paintings, as by Kelsey Books. They are all ekphrastic poems, which is totally different than the farming poems. And one of the things I like to do, and I did it in both books, is a lot of poems do not have punctuation. So I totally rely on the ends of lines and stanza breaks. Each poem is named after one of the paintings. Now, in case you did not know, Thomas Cole was a part of what's called the Hudson School of Art. And he was in the 1830s. He was in the time period of the Erie Canal, the Monroe Doctrine, Andrew Jackson was president. The Oregon Trail was going on at the time. And he made these incredibly large paintings. A lot of them are allegorical. A lot of them are about the end of the world. He foresaw the collapse of empires. And he also was an ecologist before there was even a word called ecology. I find this man very fascinating. So I made a whole book of poems based on his paintings. The first painting is called Sunny Morning on the Hudson River. This is the only morning they'll ever know. Fog breaking off a mountain as rain drifts, slow tempo arriving at the end. Follow the trail of small rocks along a hesitant river. A gust shivers the pine needles, light spirals from a temporary cloud cover. Small moments seem to last forever. This day will never last, and tomorrow will be different. As you enter this song of many days, this sheet music of moments, riffs as casual as wind, this day curls with an orange-red sunrise, light reflecting off the stones by the vibrating river into the pines. You may see me doing a lot with my hands. I speak sign language fluently. And sometimes I forget I'm not signing, so I do it unconsciously. He had a series of paintings. He did what are series, like several paintings all connected to each other. This one was called The Course of Empire. And every painting had a separate title. And they all related to the possible collapse of America with ecology back in the 1830s. And it also foresaw endless wars back in the 1830s. This is from the second painting called The Arcadian or Pastoral State. Do not be deceived by the pastoral, idyllic fields, sky clearing for a spring morning. Trouble is hiding in that calmness, an undercurrent of impending disaster. No one can see. Upriver, using a forked peak of a boulder as a guide, someone is chopping trees. Someone plows land into submission. Notice the trimmed, organized lawns. This is not God's plan. People are building a boat. Someone herds God's sheep into the fulcrum of the fields. What Greek god is worshipped at the magnetic white column temple? Sacrificial pale smoke curls out. And look, the boat is a warship. A child idolizing a soldier prepares for his first war. What kind of God is this? He had another series called The Voyage of Life. And again, each painting was connected. This voyage of life went from childhood all the way to death. And this particular one is based on childhood. Water falls silently only for you. Leaves shush in dawnlight, so you might find the ever-making fields. Water lilies rise from their hidden depths to try to claim this love of light. A horse races after the light on the curving land of the Creator's palm. Light finds you and saturates you. It finds you all the way from the other side of the world. This next poem is the cover. It's called A View of the Two Lakes and Mountain House, Catskill Mountains, Morning. Light by itself has no color, but the jay does, singing unspeakable love. Each day, he is constantly reviving from the unspoken to the spoken. All eventually enter the unknown. Light moves slowly, holding its breath, afraid of breaking this hushed world. All fear the slightest disturbance will ruin the mystery of extreme silence. And the last poem is from another series, but I only wrote just one poem from that particular series. It's called The Pilgrim of the Cross, at the end of his journey. Because tonight, I'm ending this journey with this particular poem. We never lived so long, we can't learn love. We never know so much, we can't ignore the light in the pattering rain. Some of us never live long enough to realize what we have done and how it affects others. When all of our words fail to be heard, rain will collapse as retribution. We need to learn to forgive. And since I don't know how much time I have, I'm going to end there.
Oh,
Thank you
Mark.
again for having me read. And thank you for everybody for attending.
Thank you so much. People can unmute, please. I know you want to clap just like I do, so please feel free to do so. Martin, that was a fabulous poem to end on. That was,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, wow. So we normally have time for questions, and I have a few, but I want other people to jump in as well. So feel free to unmute and ask Martin questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
What made you choose Thomas Cole for an ekphrastic poem series?
I'm sorry, can you speak a little louder for me? I do
Sure.
have hearing loss from Vietnam, so you have to speak up for me.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. I wanted to know what made you choose Thomas Cole as a subject for ekphrastic poems.
I live about 2 hours away from it.
Right. Hudson River.
There is an actual Thomas Cole Museum. You could look it up online and you'll see several of paintings that are mentioned in this book. Not all the paintings are at the museum, but they have pictures that you can see. And you gotta imagine how big these things are. They're humongously big. Everything is just enormous. And he's not the only one from that style of painting that made these large paintings. Right. So I have seen these paintings many times. And at one point, I thought I was going to be a painter. I really did. I mentioned the barn painting. I used to be, when I was going to regular school in Syracuse, I was painting and I was doing other things because I would come back to a big city, and I entered in a lot of those state art contests and I would win. So I had an invitation to go to Chicago Art Museum to study art.
Wow.
And I had this big portfolio, and they were as huge as a Thomas Cole painting. And I carried them on the Amtrak train from Syracuse, New York to Chicago, got on the L to the museum. And that's not the only thing I carried. I got more to the story. I got there. I saw other students with their portfolios. I got so embarrassed. I didn't think I was good enough that I left and went back to Syracuse carrying all these enormous paintings.
Oh my God. Do you still paint?
And I'm getting there.
Okay.
So I also brought along, I used to be a musician. I was classically trained. I played with the Syracuse Symphony and as a child.
Wow.
And then as I grew up, I was playing what's called live radio. Probably too many people don't remember live radio. And I played live radio, and I would play with a lot of bands, but I couldn't play in auditoriums because of my age. So I slept along my mandolin, which is a particular kind of mandolin. It's called a resonated mandolin. It's got a metal plate, like a dobro, and I was sliding it like you would do a slide guitar. And I actually played live with Muddy Waters.
Wow.
Wow. So I got my draft notice. I end up in Vietnam. I come back. I had no idea I'd forgotten about the art studio. I had this letter saying, "We would love to have you. We've actually seen your paintings in the art contest." So it's very hard for me to hold pens. It's very hard for me to hold paintbrushes. It is very hard for me to do anything because of the damage that was done to me physically in Vietnam. I was a field medic. I was going out every day.
Right.
I was bringing back bodies. I was helping in operations. I was doing body bags. To give you a time period and location, I was on the burial detail for My Lake, over 300 bodies. So when I came back, I had been wounded myself. Because I was non-military, I get no benefits. I hitchhiked from California all the way to New York, limping. And I was that wounded. They never thought I would walk. I was that wounded. I proved them wrong because I'm just a hard person to deal with sometimes. And so I physically got past all the pain, all those things, but I can't do much with my hands anymore. So the paper cutouts that I do is to keep my hands working, because I'm turning the paper and I'm cutting at the same time, which is very hard to do. With childproof scissors, they add to the level of difficulty, because I really want to concentrate on using my hands and being able to go like this. Yeah. And it also helps with my sign language that I do and a lot of other things. It just goes on, but I know that's a long answer, but
it's interesting though. And at least you're not bedridden like Matisse when he was doing his cutouts. So there's that, Okay.
Oh, that was awesome to hear, Martin. I love how all the things kind of thread through each other. Does somebody else have a question? Yeah, no. Laura, can I tell them what you just wrote? She said, I love this guy. Just sent me a private message. I just think you should say that out loud because Martin will get it.
Actually, Laura's on my list of people that I contact for our bi-monthly poetry series that we have in Onondaga County. So she should come to the program more often, and it gives me a chance to promote it.
That's what I was going to say. Could you give us
Oh,
more
always
content?
promote your stuff. Yeah.
Please
I'm really
do.
into promoting others, and I did a poetry anthology just recently. Laura, you missed out. Please.
How would somebody get on the mailing list, Martin, so that people can join if they're not already?
Okay, contact me
Okay.
through my email. You can put it on there. It's basically my name. And let me know that you want to be included in what's called Palace Poetry Group.
Right.
That's the name of the group. It's my wife's group.
Okay.
I'm paying for the Zoom program because I believe so much in promoting other people and their poetry.
That's perfect.
I remember how hard it was for me to get started.
Yeah.
I remember all the questions I had about getting started and nobody to help me.
Yeah.
Great.
So
Laura, can you
now
put
my
that in the
goal
chat
is
section?
to help
I'm
others.
pulling it up.
Okay.
What's that?
She's
I'm
going to
getting
pull it up
this
and
for
put
the
it in the
chat.
chat section so people have access to it, Martin.
Yes. And I'm sure you could share it to the people that, because you already have their emails, you can share it too that way. We meet on the first Thursday and the third Thursday.
Okay, first
at 7 Eastern Standard Time. I think I need to drink water. I'm asthmatic. We got that smoke.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's really messing up my lungs. So I'm going to have to break down and drink some water.
No, drink some water and we'll continue on asking questions. And Laura, when you get that link, if you could put it into the chat section so people could, connect with Martin. I do want to also be mindful because I didn't do this, Martin. What's the best way to get the books? And are you signing books for people if they contact you directly?
Okay. I want to mention the publishers first. You always promote the people that promote you. This is Deerbrook Editions, and they're in Maine. And this is my second book with them. The other book was also Ekphrastic. The other book is from Kelsey Books. A lot of people already know about Kelsey Books.
This is great.
I was one of the early people with Kelsey Books. So every once in a while, I'll do a book with Kelsey Books. Now, those are two entirely different publishers, two different ways of doing things. Some people might be more familiar with the Kelsey Press. That's one way. I'm listed on Amazon. Lots of books on Amazon. Some of those books have gone out of print. Guess what? I still have copies. That's how poetry works. So you can order from Amazon. You see something on Amazon you might be interested in, I'll add it for free if you buy it from me. I'll pay for the postage because what am I going to do with all those books? So I got messed up with the pandemic like everybody else. I lost 15 readings that I'll never get back again. So I'm just want to almost give things away at this point because I'd rather people read things and enjoy them than to have them sit in my attic and just collecting dust. And that's the sad fact of poetry. It really is.
Yeah.
You can't make money off of it. I live on a very limited budget. Most of it was from when I used to be a children's librarian for 40 years almost. And you don't make a lot of money in libraries. You really don't. So my retirement money is not all that great, but it's enough that I can take care of myself. My wife also has an income. I have an organic garden and I eat whatever I grow. So I'm pretty much self-sufficient. I do a lot of volunteer work because I believe so much in helping other people. I work with PTSD people that had been in war.
Mhm.
I don't have it myself, but I understand it. And I do have 2 degrees. One of them is in the libraries, but the other one is in therapy. So I am a legitimate therapist. Um, but I really so much believe in supporting poets and their poetry. Really do.
Thank you, Martin. I did put in, Laura was kind enough to find the Facebook group for Palace Poetry Group. And so you can click on that in the chat section. Make sure you copy and paste it because you won't have access to it. So I would do it now so that you can connect and go to Thursdays, first and third Thursdays of the month. I
It's
thought,
a very supportive group. I'll have to say that. My wife sets the tone of the group. Uh, the basic idea is that we support each other.
I mean, Thursdays have been a lifesaver for me and a lot of other people doing these book launches. And we're fortunate that this is the second time we've gotten to speak with you. Patricia, it looked like you had a question and I didn't want to cut you off. And you're muted, so make sure you unmute if you did.
There we go, unmutational. I just wanted to mention that I had met Martin back in, I think it was 1975. And the way we learned about each other was that I went to Michigan State and I was working on a chapbook called A Circle is the Perfect Line. And I believe, and Martin had sent in some poems and, I slit the envelope and read the poems and was like, wow, check this guy out. This was very good work. And so I've long admired your work, Martin. I hope you heard what I said.
Oh, Patty, I remember you so well. It is so nice to see you. Some people I've known for a very long time. You're one of the people. Patty has this amazing, amazing video programs that she does. And she's an extreme bicyclist who goes on bicycles up mountains and stuff. And didn't you go up on the Himalayas on bicycles or something? I forget what you did, but it was like, you're an amazing person yourself. And her magazine she was in published my first poem.
Oh,
So I'm so happy to see you, Patty. Thank you.
that is really,
Hey.
really cool. That's a great, story. Thanks, Patricia, for being here. That's wonderful to see people who you connected with, before and to, re-see each other. That's amazing. Did I miss another question? I just want to make sure that I haven't. And I just have to say, one of the things about harvest time that really was striking to me this time, hearing you read, was the sonics, like the sonic structure of your poems matched what you were talking about. And I thought, whoa, that's amazing. I mean, it added to the enjoyment of hearing the poem. And I was wondering, like, did you consciously do that, or is that something that just kind of happens when you're writing?
It might be from playing music. I mentioned I was classically trained. I also played jazz. I played blues. I played a number of different things. My music goes way back to the coffee house circuits. And I met a lot of people along the way with the coffee house circuits. And if I start dropping names, you're going to say, no, he can't possibly know those people. I actually met those people. I met Bob Zimmerman. We know him as Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
I traveled with Janis Joplin, who was using the auto harp at the time. I actually, I joined the group. It was the only group I ever joined. I didn't last long because I didn't like all the egos in the group. I mean, we're talking about people that thought they were great. Turns out they were right. John Sebastian of the Loving Spoonful,
Okay.
Mama Cass Elliott from the Mamas and Papas, and Maria Mulder, who I knew as Maria Amadado. So along the way, sometimes I would be on stage and I would be one of many acts. So sometimes we hide out in the back area and we would jam. I jammed with an unknown guy. I bet nobody's heard of this guy. Somebody called Jimi Hendrix. Back when he was playing with Little Richard.
Mm.
That goes way back before he was Jimi Hendrix. Imagine my surprise that he became famous.
Got your story.
That's a great story.
You've outlived him, bro.
What's that?
There you go.
You've outlived him.
Yeah.
I did outlive a lot of them, I'm telling you. A lot of the people I knew died. There's only one album out there that has me playing on one song that I'm not even listed because I was a session musician. I played on a lot of albums, but only one still exists. And that was when I played with a group called Paul Butterfield Blues Band.
Oh, cool.
And at that time, Elvin Bishop was the lead guitar player. Dave Sanborn of the jazz fame was on that group. And I was asked to do one song only. And people still play that song. I just today saw an old, couple years old version of Tom Scott, and not Tom Scott, I mean Dave Sanborn. I saw him today, and he was doing the same song with Sting, the same exact song, and I was like, it's still around. My goodness.
Oh, that's awesome. Before I put this into the chat section, Martin, your email address for people to connect with you if they'd like to have autographed copy or some of the older books instead of buying on.
Sign if they buy them from me. I can't do it if you buy it from Amazon.
Yeah. So would mwillits01@yahoo.com be the best one?
Yes.
Okay. So I put that in the chat section if you don't already have it, and that way you can reach out and ask for a signed copy and pay directly to our poets, support our poets. Thank you so much again. Does anybody have a question, or are we ready for open mic? Okay, feels like we're ready for open mic. Can we clap again and just thank Martin for your presence and amazing storytelling? I could do that all day. I literally could do that all day. I have Christy as my first reader for tonight.
Okay.
Christy.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. This poem, I don't have many love poems in the chapbook that's coming out, but this is a love poem, so I'll read this one tonight. The title of the chapbook coming out with Finishing Line Press is Finding Her, and the title of this poem is the first line of the poem. I went to a wedding on your birthday, drank Blue Moon, still tasted Eisenbeck, felt the effects from 8 bottles of wine, a split among friends ages ago. White lights strung in a barn brought me back to a dance floor, blurred as I spun between 2 points. My dance with Lorca's Duende happened more than 2 years before we met. When you said hello, I knew it was you who breathed true meaning into the words I had already written. You who had known me for 100 years said it was the only love poem ever felt in your soul. I thought you would resent your question as it begged my answer. Gone now, I realize that you resent it didn't. On our last day, you borrowed my copy of Lorca's Philosophy. I asked for your copy of Salinger's 9 stories, both raw, both beautiful, a tribute. Tonight, I ate wedding cake and blew out a candle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brittany. Getting so excited about the book.
I am too.
Yeah, I know. You'd have to be. I have Lynn for our next open mic. Person, yeah.
Hi, thank you.
Hi, Lynn.
First, Martin, that was wonderful. And what haven't you done? That's a shorter list, but if you haven't done a memoir, you should. Would be wonderful. And I'd also like to thank you for the anthology. Well, for years of helping poets, but most recently for putting together that anthology in record time, for getting the funding to do it. It was really wonderful for so many of us, and thank you for that. Okay, this is called Breaking Free of Mary Oliver. And I'm starting with a quote from Mary Oliver. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Mary Oliver. A challenge? A contest? I know there's only one. It makes me want to take a nap, to perfect the headstand I have been working on for 10 frigging years. My kitchen timer ticks loudly. Sometimes it jams and never rings. Sometimes I want that. So many submissions, literal and metaphorical, so little time. Is Mary chiding me? Sometimes it feels that way. What would I give to spend an hour with her? I adore her. But what if I didn't in real life? What if she smelled of cigarette smoke and snittiness? It's not so wild as most lives go, but it's mine. It's mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. That was fabulous. That's awesome. Patricia, I have you as our next reader.
Ooh, okay. I'm unmuted now still?
Yes, no, you're perfect. We can hear you.
Okay. Well, continuing the theme of homages to wonderful women poets, this one is called My Love and I Saw Maya Angelou Last Night. She was a hurricane force, speakers woofing big. She looked right at my love and me, said, poetry saved me. Poetry will save you too. She said, brothers and sisters, her 6-foot frame looming over a lectern, 10,000 eyes at her feet. Eat it, drink it, sleep it, breathe it in like honey suckle on a sultry southern day, like it's the unbearable stench from spooned bodies defecating, urinating, menstruating on the rolling death deck of a slave ship. Dr. Angelou laughed boisterously, exploding into the technologically perfect depths of the packed gymnasium. Her eyes twinkled at us as she roared, my love and I saw Maya Angelou last night. The light would change her from burnt sienna to milk chocolate, from caramel to raspberry, from peppercorn blue to brown sugar, with a voice as knee deep as Mississippi River mud and smooth as a woman's inner thigh. She sang to us. She looked right at us, could see we were lovers for 1,000,000 years, could tell 1,000,000 more would pass like water down the side of a mountain, and then 1,000,000 more, and still we would be loved. Poetry, she said, hushed in awe, the way others say, God.
Beautiful. Oh, wow. I am loving tonight. Y'all are fabulous. Thank you, Patricia. That also bringing up some of my favorite writers to hear. Oh boy. I have you next, Laura.
Okay, well, I'm going to have a few new poems to submit to Redheaded Stepchild because I recently got a rejection note from Cackalack. They did not accept any of my submissions.
It has.
Hopefully it was really competitive and I won't feel quite so bad. And in the spirit of that, I'm going to read a poem that was published in the 2016 edition of Cackalack. This is called Penelope. She can no longer deconstruct the woven shroud night by night, like Penelope, urged on by suitors, delaying admission of death, waiting for her Odysseus. The fickle gods tossing dice decide her destiny while she disentangles warp from weft, and in the morning at her loom weaves hope and sorrow yet again. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Laura. That was fabulous. Yeah, the Cackalack's always competitive. And I'm so glad that Redheaded Stepchild gets a shot at these, but it's always that timing. I mean, editors have to make those hard choices. And I was hearing somebody say, that some poets don't get rejected. And I will say that's not true. I mean, everybody gets rejected. And even Redheaded Stepchild, we had Kay Byers, the North Carolina Poet Laureate, send us work. And I remember being shocked. Wait, she still has that? And Marge Piercy sent us work. So these are, wow. Yeah, I know. That's what I said. And, so it's, even though we have to carry that disheartening thing, when you edit, you realize, oh, it's all a matter of how the whole thing comes together. And there's
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you do a good service with Redheaded
I love
Stepchild.
it.
Really do.
Thank you, Martin. I love that's actually what kept me writing was a poet back in the day when we used to do the essay, the self-addressed stamped envelope before electronics. He had taped all his rejection letters together, and he threw it, just rolled it out across the classroom and said, "Don't be discouraged. These are all my rejections." And I was like, I could wallpaper my whole house with this, my whole apartment. But it kept me going. And that's why I wanted to do Redheaded Stepchild, so that people will remember this is part of the, it's part of the whole grist for the mill, as it were. I have Lee. Yes.
I will recommend you.
Oh, thank you, Martin. I appreciate that. I love getting new poets that haven't come and sent us anything. So that would be fabulous. Let people know. Lee, I have you next for open mic.
Would you put something in the chat that how we can contact you?
Oh, of course. I will gladly do so. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Yes.
And put in your Redheaded Stepchild site as well.
That's smart, Martin. I always forget to do that. Thank you for letting me do that. I will do that. Thank you.
It's a great magazine, folks. Don't miss out.
Thank you. All right, Lee. So we're pleased to have you here to read. I'm excited.
Okay. Now you mentioned rejection. I took a class in short poems, and I have a two-liner about rejection. There is no rejection. There's only non-selection.
So true. I like that whole saying, though. Awesome.
So anyway, I used to subscribe to Reader's Digest, and they have an article in there called Word Power. And so I selected 27 words from 16 volumes of Reader's Digest and Word Power articles. And I wrote a poem called To My Valentine. I submitted it to Reader's Digest 4 years ago, and I haven't heard a word from them. So maybe I should submit this one to you.
I'm just happy already with the intro, Lee. Continue.
All right, so to my Valentine. Your voice, sometimes susurrant, sometimes plangent, yet often mellifluous, awakens my senescent self from the sopor you might call languorous. Cantankerous though you may sometimes be, I'm your ardent swain connubial. You are my lambent dream, my dalliance, my incarnadine paramour uxorial. Assiduously we solve viscid vicissitudes, then celebrate our copacetic perspicacity with hedonistic gamble, requited fidelity, and penchant for lascivious felicity.
Oh.
Lascivious felicity. Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you, Lee. Oh, wow. Don, we are ending with you. And so I'm headed your way. Remember to unmute. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I've enjoyed this very much. I picked this one. You'll see why. This is my blacksmith poem, although it's not about blacksmithing. Alternate universe. We built rocket payloads for the vacuum of space, immaculate. Our test systems were just as clean, spark welded stainless plumbing, scrubbed with solvents, blasted with dry nitrogen, then pumped down and baked red hot. I apprenticed with Jim Murphy, an old man, a widower, like I am now. He often spoke of his life in the church since her passing, stained glass window repairs, broken sewer pipes, how his watch ran backwards that time he went with another woman.
Thank you, Don. And Don was also one of our celebrations with book launches, and that was fabulous. Well, Martin, you brought a wonderful group together, and thank you to everybody who read, who was here. This was a fabulous evening and a great way to spend our time together. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. And
I
Martin,
did.
you.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Like, and you, Martin. Lovely.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again for having me. Thank you for people for coming in. I see some names that I recognize that are up there. Either I've seen you or books or poems somewhere. So, yeah, it's nice to see familiar names. Thank
It
you
is
so much.
lovely. We are very fortunate to be able to gather. That's one of the blessings that Zoom has brought. Who knew that I would be saying that, but I do very much enjoy getting to be in the company of poets I admire, but I wouldn't have been able to go to a reading with. And so I am grateful. Martin, be well. I'm going to send you that website for
Thank
the, the blacksmith who does forging. Thank you for all
Bye,
the
everybody.
stories. I'm going to echo what Lynn, I think it was Lynn that said, write a memoir. So,
Yes,
Yeah, I agree with that too.
right?
better.
All right. Be well, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.